Hi, I'm Shirley from the Emotional Health Collective. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling exhausted, misunderstood, or strangely invisible, like no matter how carefully you explained yourself, it just did not land? You replay the words later thinking, I said it clearly, I was calm. Why didn't they get it? If that sounds familiar, you are not alone, and the truth might surprise you. Explaining yourself often does not work, not because you are bad at explaining, but because explanation is rarely what the other person is actually responding to. Most of us are taught that if we just find the right words, understanding will follow. That logic plus clarity equals resolution. But human interactions do not run on logic alone. They run on emotion, power, timing, and identity. When you explain yourself, you are usually trying to be understood, but the other person might be doing something very different. They might be defending themselves, protecting their ego, avoiding responsibility, or holding on to a version of the story that feels safer to them. In those moments, your explanation is not being heard as information. It is being heard as a threat to their self-image, a threat to their role in the situation, or a threat to the comfort of not changing. That is why the more you explain, the worse it can feel. You add details, you soften your tone, you rephrase, you try again, and somehow it still does not land. What often happens next is subtle but painful. You start explaining more than necessary. You overclarify. You justify your feelings. You defend boundaries that should not need defending, not because you are weak, but because you care, because you want peace, because you want connection. And that desire makes it easy to slip into a role you never agreed to, the role of proving that your feelings make sense. Here is something rarely said out loud. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, no explanation will fix that. Not because you failed, but because understanding requires willingness, and willingness cannot be argued into existence. Another hard truth: some people benefit from you staying confused, apologetic, or unsure. If you are busy explaining yourself, you are not asking questions, you are not setting limits, you are not noticing what is actually happening. Explaining can become a distraction, one that keeps you focused on your words instead of their behavior. And when explanations fail repeatedly, it does something quiet but damaging. It teaches you to doubt yourself. You start wondering if your feelings are too much, if your needs are unreasonable, if you are asking for something you do not deserve. But the problem was never the clarity of your explanation. It was the mismatch between your intention and theirs. You were trying to be understood. They were trying to stay comfortable. So what does work if explaining does not? Often, it is not saying more. It is saying less. Not with anger, not with coldness, but with grounded clarity. Sometimes the most powerful shift is internal. Realizing that being understood by everyone is not a requirement for being valid. Your feelings do not need consensus. Your boundaries do not need approval. And your truth does not need to be defended over and over. Explaining yourself once can be communication. Explaining yourself endlessly can become self-abandonment, and learning the difference is not easy, especially if you grew up believing that being clear and reasonable would keep the peace. But peace built on shrinking yourself never lasts. If you take one thing from this, let it be this: when explanation does not work, it is not always a signal to try harder. Sometimes it is a signal to stop, to observe, and to ask whether the conversation is actually safe, balanced, or honest. You are not difficult for wanting to be understood, but you are allowed to step back when understanding is not being offered. That is not giving up. That is self-respect. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications.